The United States has the largest incarceration rate in the world compared to other NATO countries, according to Emily Wildrat in her article, States of Incarceration, The Global Context, 2024. For being the land of the free, we're not very free compared to other countries. The correctional system in the United States should focus more on rehabilitation rather than punishment as it is currently set up now. I'm a criminal justice student and I currently hold my paralegal certification, and so I have a little bit of experience with the criminal justice system to be able to speak upon this. And today I'm going to discuss the recidivism rate in America compared to other countries who focus on rehabilitation, such as Norway. I'll also discuss the cost of rehabilitation versus incarceration, and I'd also like to share some testimony from a correctional officer who worked in one of the largest U.S. facilities. The United States correctional system should focus more on rehabilitation rather than punishment, and it's seen that it's focused on punishment with the 1994 crime bill. Robert Averly explains this really well in his book, The Administration of Justice, where the 1994 crime bill got tough on crime. The U.S. got tough on crime, and so we saw a spike in the prison population. And with that, we also saw a spike in the recidivism rate in America. And so we see this study that was actually tracking 404,683 prisoners from 30 different states who were all released in 2005. And during that study, they found that 67.8% were rearrested within 3 years of their release, whereas 76.6% were rearrested within 5 years. This is discussed by Caitlin Dixon in her 2014 blog, America's Recidivism Nightmare. We don't give much support to people who have been arrested or who have been incarcerated. And it shows. It shows with the stigma that the people go through when they get out of jail. They find it difficult to find jobs, to hold jobs even, while they're awaiting their trial. And I know a lot of people will say, well, if they did the crime, then they should do the time. But what good is the time if you're not trying to better yourself? If you're not doing anything to improve yourself or improve the community around you, what good is it? What good is that time? And so we look at other countries and their rehabilitation programs and how successful they are. And so we look at Norway in particular, and Cinnamon Janser's 2019 article, North Dakota Reforms Prisons the Norwegian Way. They explain that Norway actually has a recidivism rate of about 20%. So that is astonishing. It's also interesting to see that they boast the most humane prison in the world, with Amelia Gentleman's 2012 article discussing the Halden prison and how it's more akin to a hotel, just a hotel you can't leave, but it's more comfortable and they have more privacy and they are held accountable and pushed to rehabilitate. Whereas in America, we focus on punishment. However, that doesn't really help rehabilitate anybody. It doesn't help anyone. And so just think about it. You sit in a 6 foot by 8 foot cell for hours on end, years at a time, with nothing to do but think and wallow in the misery. It's a disservice to people who have mental health issues, who are drug abusers, who need help. We are not doing what we need to do to help these people who are already vulnerable, who already struggle as it is. And now I understand that some people will say this is a waste of time, that the rehabilitation programs are a waste of money, that they cost too much. It can't be done. But it's been proven that rehabilitation costs less. With Elevation Health's blog post in 2024, they discussed that it's $31,000 per prisoner annually to incarcerate them, whereas it is $10,000 to $15,000 per person to rehabilitate them, to go through the rehab programs. And so that's a great cost savings. So just from a business perspective, it makes sense for us to rehabilitate someone. And that's just the direct cost or direct benefit, excuse me. And so the indirect benefits are grander. The recidivism rate would go down, and there would be more support in the community, because typically the rehabilitation programs are based in the community. And so the criminal then has ties to the community after they get out. They have a way and a means to make changes in their life. With the rehabilitation programs, they focus typically on education, job training, and drug and alcohol abuse counseling. This is explained by the U.S. Department of Justice in their 2023 article, Reducing Recidivism by Strengthening the Federal Bureau of Prisons. So they understand how important it is, too, to give people an opportunity to change. The next thing I would like to discuss today is actually going to be coming from a dear friend who spent many years in a jail facility. He was a correctional officer. His name is Clay Arthur Weaver III. And he talked to me a little bit about how unfair the correctional system is from the get-go. Because if you can't make bail, you sit in jail until your trial. And sometimes people are innocent. He discussed with me how one person in particular awaited 3 years for their trial, and then they were not even convicted of a crime. So they were free, and they were not guilty. So, but they still spent 3 years of their lives just waiting. And it's sad to think about, but it's really astonishing to see the number. It's 457,000 people out of the 2 million who are housed in correctional facilities in the U.S. that are not even convicted of a crime yet. So they are not guilty yet. They are presumably innocent, but they still spend their time in jail because they can't make bail. And so Mr. Weaver discusses how unfair everything is and how the stigma of going to jail or even prison is, and how hard that is on people. He sees a lot of the same criminals coming back because they get rearrested and they can't keep a job because they've been out of the employment field for so long. It's just really sad to see that we are not set up to help them re-enter society. So Mr. Weaver agrees that things need to change if we are to see any change in the conditions of our jails and prisons and see a change in the recidivism rate. Now today I discussed the recidivism rate in America compared to Norway. I also discussed the cost of incarceration versus rehabilitation, and also provided a little insight from a correctional officer who worked at Rikers Island. And so I hope you find this information insightful. I hope that you actually do something with it, though, because we have a voice in this. We have a voice in how the correctional system works. When we vote, we make a difference. When we create laws and we push the elected officials to do different things, we can have a voice in this. And so I urge you to please write to your elected officials and talk to them about the correctional system.